It's been a while since I've made one of these, but it's time for another episode of the Escapades playlist because we have a whopper of a thread here. A few days ago, nearly a week ago, replaying Napoleon Total War has made me realise what I miss about old Total War battles. So this is another thread in the vein of this one. Lack of tactical depth in recent Total War titles, and that was 2 years ago, so that was September 2021. And he pointed out how stamina and vigour no longer matter, combat is short, you don't keep units in reserve because stamina doesn't mean anything. And after having really acquainted with Medieval 1, this is really resonating with me. If you keep troops in reserve, they can have such an impact on a fight if you introduce them at just the right time. Hard counters and unit trading over unit synergy and combined arms, making the battle feel more like a card trading game than an immersive engagement. And I thought this was remarkable. He says here, this is a random guy who's now since deleted his account, I think, but he says, feels like a card trading game than an immersive engagement. And then in this thread here, this guy says, what does he say? Oh man, look at this. I find that the Warhammer battles feel like a quick fire card game about using abilities and unit matchups. So that was 6 days ago, and it got 800 upvotes. And remember, this is on the shithole subreddit. I can now say it because more than 15 seconds have elapsed. This is an episode of the escapades of the shithole subreddit, which is exactly what this place is. It hasn't changed. Even if the quality of the post were to improve, this is still just a controlled shithole of the worst consumers that have just replaced the actual Total War fan base. This is all just Warhammer fanboys. It will be that forever. You have to just nuke this place from orbit and start again by making actually good games, because of course what you get is what you've got playing them. So you've got shit players playing shit games, and until you start again, wipe the slate completely clean, you're not going to get either being different. Yeah, so we've got 13 videos on this playlist, and this is going to make 14, and we started just over 2 years ago, I think. So it started just over 2 years ago, and this one was about a year ago nearly, so we've had a long break. But let's get into this properly. So this was by Dan Wags 6 days ago. Replaying Napoleon Total War has made me realise what I miss about old Total War battles. Let me preface this by saying a few things. One, I like slow-paced battles in the Napoleonic era, so I appreciate I have bias. Two, I've been playing Napoleon with Darth mod, so the AI is decent, among other improvements. I'm a big fan of all things Warhammer, so I've been playing a lot of the Total War Warhammer games over the past few years. However, recently I've found playing the battles a little repetitive. Yes, there's a lot of unit and army diversity, and I've perhaps been using similar strategies, but I find that the map sizes and designs suits cheese over strategy. This is exactly what I've been saying this whole time. There's no actual tactics, it's all just gamey garbage. You use a delete unit paintbrush and you paint the ground to delete units. You don't actually defeat them with tactics. You can be at the bottom of a hill, and this is a point that I think needs to be made a lot more. You can be at the bottom of a hill, totally exhausted, be outnumbered, be hard countered, and you can still just paintbrush death on them and have them die while you don't die. So any RTT game that has stuff like that is just fucking garbage. Basically, I find that the Warhammer battles feel like a quick-fire card game about using abilities and unit matchups, whereas the Empire Napoleon battles feel more like a chess game where positioning and strategy is at the forefront. Oh man, you need to play Shogun 2, Medieval 2, Medieval 1, you need to play those games then. I love the 360 sieges, being able to put units inside buildings, my infantry having banners and drums and smoke from musket fire engulfing the battlefield. I realise that these things aren't necessarily viable in a visually dynamic game like Total War Warhammer. As if that has any bearing on it, as if that has anything to do with this. But in some cases, a Total War game with simple graphics and units can allow for much more dynamic battles through larger maps and interactive terrain. Simple graphics and units can allow for much more dynamic battles. Yeah, I don't know if that's even the right way to phrase it, but you can have a 2.5D isometric tactical game that's way more tactical than modern games, And the easiest way to prove that is to just look at a game like Sudden Strike from 1999 2000 and compare that to Company Heroes 3 and 2000 and what 2022 or 2021. Sudden Strike is way more tactical than Company Heroes. Company Heroes is absolute trash. And then for another obvious example, compare Medieval 1 or Shogun 1, both amazing games, to Troy or Warhammer or Three Kingdoms or Pharaoh. It's a night and day difference. Those two games from 2000, 2002, they are really tactical and patient, and player decisions and ideas matter, and they're not crushed by gimmicks and cheap shit, cheese as was described here. They're all about the tactics. It's really got nothing to do with it. The graphics, it doesn't have anything to do with it. This is consciously decided by designers, game designers, developers, whether their games are going to be tactical or not, and they've chosen to just have them not be tactical. Much more dynamic battles through larger maps and interactive terrain. Interactive terrain, I don't know what he really means there. He might just mean variation in terrain, so like line of sight effect in guns, and whether they can even shoot, which is something we've had before, and seen how different that is. And then he says here, I haven't played much of the recent historical titles like Three Kingdoms, Thrones of Britannia, or Troy, Thrones of Britannica. That's autocorrect, I think. Or Troy, so I don't know if these elements have disappeared entirely from the Total War franchise. Is this an unpopular opinion, or am I preaching to the converted here? Absolutely, it's unpopular, which is surprising. Which makes surprising the fact that he got 96% upvoted, 800 upvotes. It seems like all of the Warhammer fanboys have just evaporated, sublimated into the background. Because, see, 2 years ago, there's no way you would have had these kinds of things. Like, let's have a look at this. Lack of tactical depth in recent Total War titles, 87% 2 years ago. Even that was quite surprising, but now it's 96%. So all of the fanboys, the super defensive fanboy weirdos, the kind of people that would harass you if you critique their toy, a lot of them have just disappeared, and the average temperament has changed. It's surprising. It happened a lot quicker than I thought. They haven't stuck around. And I think this has implications for any future Warhammer 3 DLC. It seems like they've lost a lot of the fervour, you know, the zeal, to borrow a term from Medieval 1. So, the environment has definitely changed, and I'm seeing a lot more people admit that I was just right all along. Simple as that. Like, they're saying, they're now just saying I'm right without any caveats, because that's something that would happen. And this is what pissed me off about this place, like 2 years ago before I got banned on here. People would say I'm right, and then they would offer a caveat, and they'd say, but the way she says it, but they've stopped doing that now. More and more people are just saying Voland was right all along. They're not even bothering to put little pathetic, wimpy caveats. Alright, so now let's look at the comments. So we've got how many comments that we can look at? 245. So it's got nearly 1,000 upvotes, 200 comments, 245, and then this one had about the same ratio, 4-1. Alright. Yep. And then this guy says, sorry man, I literally started on Empire. I'm so far in your corner, I'm Slav squatting on the ring's corner post. And yet Empire, see, by the time Empire came out, I had already become disillusioned with Total War. Because, first of all, Medieval 2 was really bland and boring without the Kingdoms expansion and without Third Age. I never really played Medieval 2 that much until I played the Americas expansion, and I actually liked that a lot. Some of the other ones were good as well, like the Crusader expansion. I think I played the Teutonic one a little bit as well. The one I played the least was the Britannia one, and I think Thrones of Britannia is basically just turning that expansion for Medieval 2 into a full game, or a saga as they call it. But by the time Empire had come out, me and all the people I knew that played Total War had decided Total War was shit now, because you had Medieval 2, which was sort of shit compared to Rome, and then you had Empire, which was shit as well, just a complete broken, buggy mess. And you even had this, which I should show you. Here it is. So, on release, quote, Empire Total War has exceeded all our expectations. It's one of those rare great works that the team will remember with enormous pride for the rest of their lives, and the public will remember as one of the landmark games of the decade. Mike Simpson, creative director at the Creative Assembly. And then October 9th, 2009, so that was a few months later, I think, quote, I had 6 copies of Empire Total War sat on my shelf intended for close gamer friends that I didn't send out because I was too embarrassed about the flaws. Mike Simpson, creative director at the Creative Assembly. So that just goes to show what we're dealing with here. That is how bad Empire was and still is, because they never even fixed it. Sega forced them to just abandon fixing it. As I've since heard ex-CA from around that time that were working on these games tell me in confidence, Sega didn't even let them finish fixing it. They had to just move on to Napoleon almost immediately. So that is something that I've heard since I've started critiquing 2 years ago from multiple ex-CA that I've talked to. They've gotten in touch with me and they've explained to me how things worked over there, and they are quite pissed at Sega because they just blame Sega and Sega's people that run CA for all of the flaws with Empire and some of the other direction problems that CA's had with how they now approach games. They blame Sega for a lot of it, and the lackeys that Sega puts in charge of CA. Yep, so to start with Empire and have that be a high point, that just shows you how far we've fallen. If people are coming here and saying, man, Empire was so good compared to this Warhammer shit, then my god, what does that say about Warhammer? When, for people like me that have been playing since Shogun 1 in 2000, we regarded Empire, and still do regard Empire, as a goddamn train wreck, a fucking mess. Disappointed myself for letting myself get excited about the new game before they announced the title. Bro, Empire 2 win. Yeah. As if that is going to be any good whatsoever. See, once a game company's taken this direction, when they've chosen to appeal to this audience and make this kind of games that they're currently making, which is really arcadey, really casual, really brain dead, no real gameplay possible, emulating Paradox games to appeal to audiences that have already been developed elsewhere, demand that's already been created elsewhere. When they're already so far down that path, they're never going to go back to this, to making games like Medieval 1, Shogun 1, Rome, Med 2, even Empire, as these people are talking about. They're never going to do that. They've already left that trajectory. They're well off of it. They couldn't even do it if they wanted to. They've got all the infrastructure set up to make a completely different game. It's never going to happen. This is completely delusional. People have left CA because they know they're never going to make games like this ever again. People working there as a job that they've always wanted. So they leave university, they want to work at a game developer they respect, they pick CA after having played Rome Total War, they hope that they're going to get to make good games, they pump out shit like Troy and Warhammer and Three Kingdoms, and then they just leave the company thinking, wow, we've completely sold out, we're just making annualized garbage. The people that are working there in the studio have just left, and people are sitting here having not even caught on, thinking, oh, Empire 2, well, I'm so excited for an Empire 2. It's just completely delusional. You can't have been paying attention. And like I said, I've talked to XCA, and they've explained to me how things work over there. So it's never happening. There's a reason Pharaoh looks like it does. There's a good reason for it. It's because they've already decided on making another Troy game, and Troy itself is just Warhammer. They've already decided on the kind of game they're going to be making, indefinitely, in perpetuity. Completely delusional. Completely delusional. This is childlike naivety here. Vigorously scratching neck. Y'all get any more of that linear warfare? Just one more tiny whiff of grape shot and then I'll get clean, I swear. What the fuck? Fuck this. Sorry, let's find some actual comments that are saying something. Seems obvious to me they'll be going for Medieval 3 or Empire 2 after Pharaoh, but almost certainly they'll want to emulate Warhammer's success by making it a multi-part series that can be stitched together to cover the entire world. You can see how Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas could form their own medieval or imperial era games that all come together into an amazing whole. An amazing whole. Yeah, like Three Kingdoms was, for fuck's sake. I feel the worst for Pharaoh. I guess it'll be something like Troy Total War. Oh, you think? It can't possibly be that the people that have already played it have said exactly that. I like how people are still in this autopilot pre-release mode of just putting out all of these cliches and tentative statements as if they are at all defensible. People have already fucking played Pharaoh. The shells that are just dying to say anything positive, they've already played Pharaoh and they're all saying it's just Troy again. They've already said it. It's confirmed. What are you talking about? Anyway, I love Warhammer Total War, but Op is right. Battle are less tactics. I loved Shogun 2. Empire was great also. However, I disliked games like Three Kingdoms, Troy. Yeah, exactly. There we go. So he became quite sensible in the end. I was actually so relieved when I learned Pharaoh wasn't a main game, because the Medieval 3 or Empire 2 is way, way, way at the top of my list for the next historical Total War. And of course, people are fixated on this historical thing still, as if that will save it, as if that will make it any better. If it's somehow not a Warhammer game. People think that you can have these silly categories, historical and fantasy, which basically just means Warhammer and not Warhammer, and that if it's not Warhammer, it'll not be a Warhammer clone. But we already know that they're just making Warhammer clones. It's already been confirmed that they're just making Warhammer derivative games over and over again. Three Kingdoms was the same as Warhammer. Troy was the same as Warhammer. Pharaoh is the same as Troy. Pharaoh is the same as Warhammer by being the same as Troy. Like, fuck's sake, this is all just so stupid. As if you're ever going to get real guns again. What are you talking about, man? Come on. Do you honestly think that the cannons in a Medieval 3, like the culverins and bombards in a Medieval 3, or the, what do you call it? Oh yeah, the puckle guns. Do you honestly think that the puckle guns in Empire are going to be anything like the puckle guns that we had in the Empire game we already had 15 years ago? They're not. They're going to just be another weird, flashy lights, physics light thing, like what we had in Warhammer with all of its weird fucking firework light show bullshit. It's going to just be that again. People are just so naive here. Jumped in on Three Kingdoms to scratch the historical itch on sale. So bloody disappointing. I did love the diplomacy though. Felt like the best version in every faction. Felt unique to interact with. At least reacted reasonably. It says a lot when we're talking about Total War games and people are complimenting it on its paradox game strategy map bullshit. Man, so much of these comments are really boring. Shogun 2 Fall of the Samurai is my favourite, and I concur with this post. Total War used to be an excellent tactics game. It feels much more arcadey now. And with this, we have a thumbnail. Perfect. Exactly, couldn't have said it better myself. Things like high ground used to matter a lot. Things like flanking and causing morale shocks that led to mass routes used to be the key to winning against overwhelming odds. Damn right, man, well said. Skirmishing well prior to engagement, ensuring their skirmishers didn't hit your line infantry or valuable units used to matter. Empire was a bit hit and miss, but Napoleon, Total War and Fall of the Samurai were the best gunpowder battles that CE have given us. I'm not really psyched about Pharaoh. Bronze Age combat isn't really my thing. I much prefer Rome Total War's era, but whatever next historical title they're developing after, they really need to go back to Medieval 2, Rome Total War, Shogun 2 and Fall of the Samurai and ask themselves, what did these games do well that meant the players have such a connection to them? Look at the campaign map and the battles and how they managed to sync strategy and tactics from the campaign to the battle map so well. Exactly. And Medieval 1. And I've said this already, but Medieval 1 is arguably the best Total War game ever made. It's all been one step forward, two steps back ever since. This is a position I've started to really appreciate recently. I never had anything bad to say about Shogun or Medieval 1, and I would often praise Shogun, but after having played a whole campaign in Medieval 1 recently, for the first time, after having first played Medieval 1 in like 2020, I can say now with confidence that Shogun and Medieval 1 were pure Total War games, and ever since, things have been added. Sometimes it's been an improvement, like with Rome Total War becoming 3D, but in terms of the pure tactics of battles, it's never been better than Shogun 1 and Medieval 1, because those were designed, as I've pointed out before, around Sun Tzu and the Art of War. Even when you get a 9-star general in Medieval 1, it will say a reference to, if war was an art, this man would have mastered it, or something to that effect. It's a Sun Tzu reference in a medieval themed game. Shogun 1 was full of Sun Tzu references, but Medieval 1 occasionally just drops them in as a nice homage to what the franchise started out as. And yeah, Medieval 1, I think if I was to pick a high point for Total War, an actual peak, without being any sort of a graphics or 3D chauvinist, I would say Medieval 1 is the best Total War game ever made. And people never give it the credit it deserves because they've never played it, just like I had never played it. People will praise, and this is a good point, he's actually making a solid argument here. He's praising Medieval 2, Rome, Shogun 2, and Fall of the Samurai, and those are all really good games that I've played for probably 1,000 hours each for these. Like, I've played these a hell of a lot, and I've used them as examples. But where is Shogun 1 and Medieval 1? They started Total War, and without Medieval 1, there's no Rome 1, there's no Medieval 2. Medieval 1 was the template for Rome and Medieval 2. The trait system that Medieval 1 had is almost as detailed as the trait system in Rome and Medieval 2, or maybe even more detailed depending on how you look at it. It had assassins, it had spies, it had emissaries, it had cardinals. Medieval 1 had everything. It had crusades. You would launch a crusade in Portugal or Sweden, and you would just go all across Europe down to the Levant, and you would hoover up any allied units that were there. You could actually siphon men and units from your allies on the way to the Holy Lands, and then you get there and fight a giant battle against the Egyptians, the Almohads, after having started with just a banner and a cross. So Medieval 1 had everything, and to never see it be acknowledged how good Medieval 1 was is actually kind of criminal, because when you're trying to contrast bad modern contemporary games with the best Total War games and the ones that really define Total War, you have to mention Medieval 1 and Shogun 1. You have to do it, because they did so much better and they did it so long ago. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to really elaborate on that and establish that for people, because the discourse is really incorrect around all of this. There's a massive blind spot that has to be amended, I think. But he is right, he is correct here. I'm just supplementing his point. I'm adding to it, because he's totally correct. I'm a huge fan of Warhammer, so I've loved what they've done. But for fuck's sake. But their historical titles are still a bit below par in my onion. High Ground used to be brutal in the medieval games, and I hope he means Medieval 1 as well. And I do miss that. Superior troops on a hill holding off waves of chaff, good times. Yeah, this is what Total War should be all about. This is what every RTT game should be about. You painstakingly position your units to be in the most tactically advantageous positions to support each other, to take advantage of all the variables, and then you beat the odds. That's it. You're playing against an AI most of the time, so AI is retarded. You've got to beat the odds. The AI has to have way more than you, and you have to be able to beat them anyway. And that's where the fun is. So that's how these games should work, but they haven't worked like that in so long. The maps in Medieval 2 were so wonky though. Every second battle I would find myself attacking an enemy up a cliff face or defending at the bottom of one, even if the campaign map didn't look too hilly. Well, it shouldn't surprise you if there's a hill, if there's a massive variation in the terrain anywhere near where the defenders are getting attacked, they're going to take that. That's how it should work. Why would they just sit at the bottom of the hill instead of taking the hill? If their scouts know that there's an attacker coming to take a fight against them, of course they're going to take a hill and defend it. Like, come on. I'd forgotten how much the high ground matters in old games. I was putting down a rebellion and empire with a veteran army, and I charged a veteran regiment of Prussian line infantry who have a good charge bonus uphill into some rebel militia. The militia absolutely missed my veteran troops in melee just because they held the high ground. Damn right. That's how it should be. And it's funny seeing people notice this, noticing that these modern games have just tossed all that away, and now you just use magic spells to delete units. That's what they're used to now. Even in Three Kingdoms, you would just charge your hero up the hill into the blob and then start clicking the buttons to just make explosions happen on him. It's absolutely terrible gameplay, abysmal gameplay. Or you would run up Achilles around the unit and just start stabbing it in the back, and then the hill doesn't matter now, because you just ran around the unit with superhero on top of the hill behind it. So yeah, all these games are so bad. That sense of panic when you notice they have cavalry about to mow down your skirmishers and you're furiously clicking the move order to get them to run faster back behind your main lines. But this isn't irrelevant in Warhammer, is it? High ground can still matter, and flanking or rear charging is important too. Also, new tactics are available, like breakthrough with large entities and magic. That's not tactics, what are you talking about, man? Also, artillery can be crucial. Artillery is a field leveler. It just means that none of that stuff matters. That's the point. Artillery can just shoot on top of hills from outside of their range, and you just bomb them on the hill. It's never been tactical, it's always been quite passive. That's never been what Total War's about. It's more, I think artillery in Total War games has always just been a end game spectacle thing, you know, like Gatling guns. I don't think it was even really meant to be effective. Gatling guns in Fall of the Samurai are not known for having been effective. They were cool though, and people would want to bring them even on multiplayer, but they weren't known as effective. Likewise, what are they called? Parrot guns in Fall of the Samurai, or Armstrong guns. They are not effective against players when players just stretch their infantry out into long thin lines. That means the artillery can't do anything. It's not meant to be effective. It might work against the AI because the AI is completely retarded and just marches around and blocks, but it's not meant to be effective. Artillery can be crucial against a brain-dead AI, maybe. The huge auras that Lords and Hero units give means that most armies in the campaign can ignore morale after a few turns. Holy shit, yeah, this is so true. This was a problem in Troy. I never would get chain routes in Troy even if I played perfectly. It just wasn't a part of the game. In Three Kingdoms, it was a bit weird because you could chain route whole armies at night. Otherwise, it wasn't really something that happened. You would have to just kill everything with cavalry. A unit might waver for a bit on a flank attack, then get over it. In the older games, getting flanked could trigger mass routes and turn the tide of battle. Yeah, and this is so true in Medieval 1. On my main channel, I just uploaded the Battle of Poitiers, where I target peasants in particular, break them, and then have the chain route precipitate right across their line. Because if you can get a flank attack in an actually strong unit, after having defeated a unit of peasants, to make the gap that you now attack that strong unit through, they are now getting flanked while they're having the nearby units routing morale penalty. So there's all these morale penalties that stack that make routes much more likely. And I've had some extremely brutal chain routes happen to myself and to the AI when I'm playing campaigns. I've had my entire front line route because a unit of spears on the flank gets hit in the side by a unit of cavalry because my spear wall isn't actually facing the charge, and then that spear unit routes, and then other units of spears near the middle start to route because they've taken some losses and they see my spear unit on the flank routing, so they're now getting flanked. they're now taking losses, and allies are routing, so they rout, and that can just spread right across the line. And there's so many fights where you're really close to chain routing, but you manage to make the AI break and chain route first. So it's always a part of the game, it's always a threat, you always have to be aware of this, you always have to consider this. This is a dimensional battle with a lot of threats, and things can change really quickly if you don't pay attention, or if you are really ruthless and decisive. You don't have that anymore. It's all just really predictable to make it less scary and frustrating for new players, which is the whole point. Pretty sure that's still the case for 3K though. Nah. They tried to make it like that. I think they patched it really late after everyone had already stopped playing it, and they tried to make cavalry less powerful and make morale matter more, but the game was still quite shitty and no one really played it by that point, so no one really even appreciated this. See, most of the playing that's been done in Three Kingdoms, it has not been while this is remotely true. I think I've tried to do tests on Three Kingdoms after that morale patch, and I haven't really been impressed. And to completely contrast that, if you use fire arrows at night against the AI, they do all just chain route. It's like you're not even earning the chain route at that point. They haven't done it right, they haven't tested it and done it properly. 3K was really half-assed and then abandoned. See, the points, unless it's by design, very low leadership units, it's tough to cause mass routes in Warhammer. It works against Skaven and to some extent ogres or the trashiest chaff, but that's about it. The average unit needs to be significantly damaged otherwise, and if it's buffed by something, they fight until close to the end. It's also easy to buff due to all the auras and spells. Yeah, exactly, this is it. This is all completely fake and contrived. Whereas leadership debuffs are a bit less common, or they're expensive temporary spell debuffs and timings need to be perfect. There are instances where I think this is fine. Mass routing dwarfs, they're just too stubborn to route, and that's a fine design choice. Can you explain high ground in more detail? I see it as very important in Warhammer still, but I'm sure over decades the mechanics have changed. Missile units get bonus damage from high ground, yeah, not range though. An optimal use of high ground with low grounded front liners gives line of sight for even firearm missile units, and of course they don't need line of sight anymore, they can fire over hills. I've shown that a few times. They can shoot without line of sight even, which is not something that should ever be the case with guns unless they're shooting at distances of actually hundreds of meters, which is never the case. You see, these guns in Warhammer, these modern fake guns, they're never firing at longer than 100 meters. It's always 100 meters they're firing at, and the projectile goes 100 meters a second or less. So there's a second of flight time. So yeah, they don't need line of sight, and the bullet just dips for a second and then hits the target. That's assuming it's at max range. This one is huge. It's the difference between, oh no, they're going to break my front line and my missile units are obstructed, and haha, like shooting fish in a barrel. Nah, he's trying to compliment how the guns work in Warhammer when the way they work is absolute garbage. It's the worst guns we've ever had. I can't believe people are pretending it can be at all otherwise. It's just absurd. These are absurd remarks. As well, melee defenders with high ground get bonuses, while those charging uphill are slower and tire faster, with fatigue debuffs to melee combat being very significant. They're not though, because even in Three Kingdoms, which is a game I played the most out of New Total War, if you had a superior infantry fighting downhill against crap, you would still be able to lose because of the difficulty modifiers. So, and remember, if you're serious about these games, you're not going to play on fucking normal. Come on, you're playing against AI, you've got to play on the highest difficulties, because the AI is just so stupid and so shitty. And when you do fight on a hill with superior infantry against crap, they will often lose because the difficulty modifiers are greater than, they exceed the combat performance modifiers that you get from the game, from terrain. So it's just really not great at all. And then there are just the terrain advantages, such as elevation, or just behind the crest of a hill providing great cover against most artillery. and stealth. These refer mostly to field battles, although the same mechanics are in play for siege. Those tend to be flatter approaches, and the efficacy of settlement walls and interior settlement overlooks are very unreliable and well below par, also, in my opinion. Yep. What games do you think requires tactics? For me, it's 3K, Rome 2, Attila, Medieval 2, and Troy. See, never played Medieval 1, never played Shogun. The most tactical Total War games that there have ever been. I tossed the original Rome in there too, but only for field battles. You can get some really good routes. You meant to say routes when flanking units, and it punished you for leaving your flanks exposed. Felt like there was a real rock, paper, scissors between infantry, archers, and cavalry. Sighted battles boiled down to which infantry had the better stats on the walls, or cheese, like putting a phalanx unit at every choke point. Not really any tactics to be had in the narrow streets. My critique is more of the arcadey feel. I don't like how stats work. Stuff like Tsudo, no advantage, and Rome 2. I don't like the lack of weather effects. Troy felt off to me, couldn't describe it. Not a fan of single entities. I enjoyed 3K, but I didn't play much. My peak games are in the order Shogun 2, Medieval 2, Rome 1, Napoleon Empire. Do love Warhammer, but it's an entirely separate game series to me. Exactly, it's not even really Total War. I felt like Shogun 2 is very arcadey. To me, units run really fast and battles end in like 3 minutes. It's been tested, and that's not the case. Archers melt down armies before they arrive. No, they don't. Archers are garbage in Shogun 2. Yarashigara being able to be the most overpowered unit in the game. No. Kisho Ninja being like 10 feet away throwing bombs. They weren't that effective, come on. And you would have to time it properly, and you would be better off just charging without throwing any bombs most of the time. But I know that's what the battles are supposed to be like. But to me, they aren't as tactical compared to like Rome 2 or Attila. Like Rome 2 or Attila. Nah, Rome 2 and Attila are not tactical games. They're fucking messes, especially in Legendary, my god. Absolutely crap. Formations matter. No, they don't. There are no formations in Rome 2. I've made videos on Rome 2 where I've tried to get triplex Akias to work. Attempting the triplex in Rome 2. Alright, so I've made timestamps on this. Ludicrous blobbing, no collision or physics whatsoever. Internet's acting a bit weird today. Of course. Abilities are written. Look at that blob, holy crap. Looks absolutely ridiculous. Triarii can take over. Come on, run! Holy shit, fucking run. Alright, let's get this one. Over the place. Look at this here. Look at these ugly overlapping fucking blocks. It just feels so strange and grid-like. Geometric and robotic. It's fucking strange shit. Principe is there. Strange fights, man. Strange fights. Let's look at this bit again. Abilities are written. Look at that blob, holy crap. Looks absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, that's a game with terrible physics, terrible collision, terrible formations. There are no formations in Rome 2. If you want to see a game with formations, look at Medieval 1, where spears actually fight multiple ranks and help each other. And if the formation, the spear formation, gets disrupted by trees or tents or anything, it doesn't work properly. They can't help each other. So this is completely backwards. Or in Troy, where units can be placed on cliffs or grass or rivers. Or 3K, where units can burn down forests to cause morale debuffs. People are impressed with the most mundane bullshit. We had Far Cry 2. No, what was it? Far Cry... Yeah, it was Far Cry 2 that had burning terrain. My god, actual fires that spreaded. And we're meant to be impressed with that in Pharaoh in 2023. It's been about 20 years since Far Cry 2, and people are making out this feature of fire that spreads as being a big deal. It's terrible. I haven't played much of Empire because of the terrible AI. I want to try Napoleon, but the small scope kills it for me. Rome 1 is still good, but not as good as 2. Oh, this is terrible. No idea. I fully disagree with that last sentence. Rome 1's battles are superior because formations actually have mass and they're an impact. Rome 2 descends into a mosh pit of one-on-one combat because of the engine. In Rome 1, multiple soldiers can attack the same entity at the same time, meaning you can actually use manoeuvre and proper positioning to a much larger force and detail. You can't pull off Hannibal's manoeuvres in Rome 2 because of the engine, you can in Rome 1. And then this guy says, this hasn't been a thing for literally years. Multiple soldiers can attack the same entity in Rome 2 just fine after it got patched. 2013 was nice and all, I miss it, but it was a decade ago. Alright, so what this guy's talking about here is the fact that you actually have the guys fight in front of you, 2-on-1, whereas in Rome 2, it's all just calculated behind the scenes. There's nothing actually being simulated physically in front of you. It's all just fake. Like, see here? And look at how the hell is anything meant to be calculated well when you've got this going on? Just look at the state of it. Like, I was talking about mosh pits here. Rome 2 descends into a mosh pit of one-on-one combat. Look at this, it is a mosh pit, look at it. It's an embarrassing game, I did nothing to cause that to happen. That's just how the game plays, and YouTube's being a piece of shit right now. Yep, it's going in the arcade direction, and I don't like it. I'm going to upvote this guy, and I'm going to upvote this guy, because they're right. Let's see if there's anything more. Unless Rome 2 changed engine overnight, no they cannot, it's a Warscape engine limitation. And then this guy goes into... Let's have a look at this. Is this my video maybe? Anything from me? Ah, yeah, it is. Damn right. So this guy's linking my videos and pointing out this shit. And what else have we got? Combat Realism Total War Rome Remastered versus Rome 2. Yeah, this is way better. Just look at, you see everything happen for real here. You see guys taking swipes, they have to turn to face before they can even engage. And then over here, it's all just a weird, floaty mess. You can even see them adjusting their footing in here. See how they gradually moved. See that guy there? Turning. It's like they have to think. Like, watch this guy. A minute, let's go back. Right, so this guy just killed someone, and now he's slowly inching forward. Just does another one, and now he's turning. He's considering where to go. And then let's look at this one. This is all just animations that are being played out and look weird. Calculation is all done behind the scenes. It's all predetermined if they're going to live or die. Spartan Hoplites against Seleucid Silver Shield Pikemen. It should be similar. Look at the shield lunges though. It looks way better in this one. You see vigorous thrusts. It's like in Medieval 1, you have the thrusting animation. And this is surely what it would be like, guys desperately trying to thrust. And this, it's like they're not even trying. Yes, I'm glad he linked one of my videos and someone else's. See, you try to sidestep this issue by making it look like units are attacking when they're really not. 36 seconds, you can see clearly on the left multiple enemies attacking the same guy, and the blow lands, while on the right you can see multiple enemies doing the hitting animation, but only one of the blows lands and the hit model only reacts to one of the hits. 36 seconds. Yeah, look, they're all ganging up on that guy, he's doomed. He's doomed, isn't he? They're all attacking him. That's 3 guys trying to slash him. Or 2. That's 2 of them going for him. This one should get him. See the shield. It even looks like the shield's doing it. Yeah, that was 2-on-1. And then that guy was looking at him and that guy got him. Yeah. it's all playing out dynamically as it should. And as someone else says, yeah, Warhammer combat is very fast sometimes, there's hardly any time to enjoy the spectacle. I do think there's a lot of strategy involved, honestly, even more than the older games, but yeah, like, at least the dominant strategies that are way too effective. People using the word strategy when it's all about tactics. We're talking about battles here. My solution is to go back to playing on normal and then basically roleplay combat as my faction, play for the cinematic, basically lean into the sandbox, but this of course means you often don't play strategically. Sieges are Warhammer's biggest travesty. Used to be my favourite part, Shogun 2, Rome 2 and Empire. Now they're a massive pain, I actually just wish they didn't exist at all. More strategy than in the older games, what are you talking about? What the fuck, man, this is where the comments are not matching up with the post and the karma on it. And then someone does the whole nostalgia argument. I think people do look back with rose-tinted glasses to some extent. The older games didn't really feel much more strategic in battle to me. That's because nothing that happens in a battle is strategy, it's all tactics. You're not even using the right word. They were often just slower with a longer position and skirmishing phase. This is bullshit, holy fuck. Watch any of what I've been uploading recently of Medieval 1. Absolutely embarrassing. People can't even see what's right in front of their eyes, and they make up shit about nostalgia. I'm gonna find this. Here are some comments that I had on my Battle of Poitiers video. Someone came along and said to me, and of course the normies will be shifting the nostalgia fallacy. And someone said, and of course the normies will be shit. And of course the normies will shit fling the nostalgia fallacy at you over and over again, despite the fact that I just started Medieval 1 with only around 100 minutes played and I'm already impressed with it being actually good. The AI even tries to not let me abuse cavalry cycle charges on like every 3D game where they just stand there until I kill entire armies with 1 to 2 cavalry units. And then I said, exactly man, well said. I first played Med 1 in 2020 after having started with the Shogun 1 demo before Total War even shipped a title. I can play Medieval 1 20 years late and have zero nostalgia and correctly observe it's better than every Total War game in the past decade. And the fucking evidence is right here in this video with the way these battles play out. The way infantry combat works, the way pikes work, the way archers fire, it's all just better. But they're now taking a flanking position on me. I'm trying to pull back with my peasants. I'm still forming up. Game, ranged. I've got my spears positioned on slopes. It's all just objectively better. A unit slopes. Even the sound of the archers fire, and listen to this. I've got a unit of spears there on the right. Even the sound of salvos going out is just way better. It's just embarrassing. Nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses. We can play the game for the first time in 2020 and see everything is better and point out all the things that are better. We can do this, pretending that we can't do it. What are you doing? The Warhammer games have more condensed those phases, but that's a trend that's been happening for a while, i.e. skirmishing is deadlier in a shorter period of time now, so the AI knows not to sit there and take it. I don't know. I have played one battle in Warhammer, in any Warhammer game, and the AI was completely brain dead. It just sat there and let me charge it in the rear. Let's find that. So this is the only battle I've ever played or will ever play in any Warhammer game. And watch this. Let's put it in 1080p this time. It's working actually now. This video's working. Look, I'm just running through with that hero unit, whatever the fuck that shit is. They use the word lord, but I hate that word. It's a larpy bullshit word that they've just injected into Total War. It's a fucking general. So my general just ran right through this gap and nothing is doing anything. They're paying more attention to the repositioning of my army away down here, down in this direction, down here. They're paying way more attention to that and shifting the line than they are to this here or this here. Look at that free rear charge. This game is garbage. What the fuck are people talking about? So I've got my general charging that archer unit in the back. I've got my cavalry unit charging that in the back. They're just sitting there and letting me do it. AI is brain dead. Brain dead. Look, I just killed it without taking any damage even. A whole unit gone. brain dead fucking worthless AI. Look at that archer unit, it didn't even fire at me. Which is another problem they've got with the AI. Look, they've done nothing. I'm killing multiple units and they're doing nothing. They're fucking useless. What are you talking about? Complimenting the AI in modern Total War games. 3K was the same, Troy was the same. The video uploaded when Troy was in early access and I was getting early access to it as a content creator. I was just running through them with Achilles killing everything. They couldn't do shit. I won the first battle with like 2 losses because the AI was completely useless. This is all nonsense. AI knows not to sit there and take it. Oh my god. I think that one of the big differences comes in how much power gets concentrated on magic and leaders in the elite units. It makes the later game strategy. You keep saying strategy. You keep using that word. I don't think that word means what you think it means. Much easier to execute. The older games would certainly have problematic units. I also find that the AI has improved for battle. Yeah, right. We just get used to it. Absolutely not. I've just played Medieval 1 and the AI, as this guy said, as this guy said, the AI doesn't even let you rear charge it. The AI even tries to not let me abuse cavalry cycle charges on like every 3D game. These people could not be more wrong. They're just talking right out their ass. Absolute bollocks every single time when these people talk. I know that whenever I switch to a newer Total War title, I initially struggle a lot more in combat than the previous one because the AI changes, improves, but I've never had that one going back to an older one. Bollocks. Perhaps that contributes some to the tactical feel. Now he's using the word tactical. It was a lot easier to arrange a hammer and anvil in Rome, for instance, so that might feel more tactical. Might also be, well, I just did it in Warhammer and they were completely useless. The AI was brain dead, so may also be that army sizes plays a role. Warhammer battles with small armies and without super powerful mages, heroes can feel very tactical too. Siege was a tough thing to do. Shogun 2, they were great fun defensively, but Rome 2, they feel fairly similar to Warhammer for me. Yeah, exactly, I can agree with this. Not an easy balance to make them feel fun to attack and defend, especially if taking into account magic, powerful single entity units, and the massive power, quality power differential that the Warhammer setting kind of demands. Tactical, my ass. Blobbing takes most of the battle, units fighting for way too long time with almost no casualties yawn. I do rear heavy cavalry charge anal probe and infantry with my mighty lances and what? It looks nice, soldiers are flying 3 to 5 metres, casualties 5 dead, no damage to morale. Is morale actually a thing in Warhammer? It really feels wonky. I miss Medieval 2 and Shogun 2 where you could kill 70% of infantry units, causing it to rout instantly. Yep, exactly, that's how it should be. If you get a perfect rear charge with a cavalry unit that's powerful, stuff like that should happen. Like, what the fuck are we doing here if we're not playing for that? I disagree, the older games were more strategic because terrain mattered more. Terrain is a tactical thing in these games, especially high ground, but also forests had far stronger buffs, debuffs, and the maps had terrain placed more usefully. So many Warhammer maps are just basically plain fields with a terrain feature here or there. Additionally, due to various changes, stuff like flanks matter far less in Warhammer than they do in, for example, Shogun. In Shogun, if my cavalry managed to get a good flank, the battle was basically over. Even if it was quite crappy cavalry against samurais. In Warhammer, I can have Reiksguard Knights do a perfect flank into Orcs and they still will take a while to rout, yeah. The other big thing is something you mentioned, namely heroes, which in my opinion, and my onion, ruin tactical gameplay since they are just so strong. Yeah, exactly. Look, I'm getting downvoted for being right. Especially spells can be so strong that you can basically just drag your army in a line, wait for the enemy to rush you, and then you just kill everything with spells. Yeah, exactly. A kill paintbrush. There's a paint dead paintbrush stroke option. Like, that's one of the tools that Warhammer games have. A death paintbrush that you can just paint all over the enemy. That's true. There's some aspects where map design can change things, but that's harder to say that terrain mattered more or less for older games versus newer ones. For example, Troy is one where there's very major terrain impacts as I understand it, and I find Forest and 3K to be quite impactful. Flank and rear charges feel similarly brutal in Warhammer as in Shogun to me. The main difference I tend to see there is that Shogun 2 Cavan units were more fragile, while Warhammer ones can be strong enough to just frontal charge and do fine depending on the faction. Not sure in the specific example you've given. Against regular orcs, I've had them crumple to a good rear charge by Karl Franz starting Reiksguard, so maybe you're looking at more elite ones. Which does obviously affect how much damage a cav charge will do morale impact wise. Really? Why? Why should it? If you're charging in the rear and you're just sticking lances right into their backs, why would that matter? Suppose older games could be seen to have more tactics involved. Absolutely. All you have to do is look at any videos of them. But that they were so easy to do versus the AI means I don't personally see it as a big difference. What? I've also had similar tactical battles in Warhammer. Absolutely not. I doubt that. Early game battles feel similar because they won't have full stacks, the ability to effectively halt outflanking manoeuvres, and your units aren't as dominant, but that tactical aspect shifts to other factors later on, like in how to spend your magic or abilities, where to put your lord or strongest units. Armies also scale in power much more than older titles, though even if you had a full stack of Oathsworn or Guard Infantry plus Armstrong guns or Long Yarashigaru, those respective games didn't have much of a tactical challenge either. Talking about power creep, and that's obviously going to be true to an extent, but at the same time the AI is supposed to keep up with that, and you're meant to use your power creep to overcome multiple stacks that the AI starts sending at you, which is something we could do. Still, one of the highlights of a Shogun 2 campaign is getting a Katana Hero and using it to hold off, or help hold off, multiple stacks as it anchors the line for like 5 or 10 minutes at a time. For me, the visual clarity is the main point. Warhammer is just so cluttered in every respect that every attempt to actually get into an extended game just ends up stressing me out. The older games are less flashy, but they also don't overwhelm my ADHD brain to the point where just trying to find a specific piece of information gives me motion sickness. Yeah. It's just a multicoloured fireworks show of piss streaks flying across the screen, fucking wet noodles just streaking across, party poppers. And then someone says, for real, I love Warhammer Tabletop, but the Total War Warhammer games have a fast food battle vibe. Holy shit. I remember I said that Warhammer was basically the fast food version of Total War, and I had the most butthurt spergs just attacking me and harassing me over it. That was nearly 3 years ago now to the day, where everything is done in a few minutes with an explosion of colours and magical effects. Exactly, it's worthless. Who the fuck wants to do that? Who wants that isn't 12? Who wants that's played Medieval 1 and Shogun 1, Who the hell has time for that? It's just a cartoon arcade game for kiddies now, that's all it is. And it seems like people are starting to agree with that, because a comment like this would have just had 5 butthurt responses like 3 years ago, but now it's got 12 upvotes. I've been playing Empire 2 mod for Empire. It really is a massive improvement, and they have a strong Discord community where you can add suggestions and bug fixes. It's quite slow paced with lots of positioning and strategy. They also unlocked the multiplayer campaign so you can play with a buddy. I'm doing a head-to-head campaign right now, it's super fun. Empire 2 mod, apparently. Interesting. Yeah, Total War battles became way too arcadey. Even Three Kingdoms and Thrones, the battle were less arcadey but simply way too fast. There's no engaging with skirmishers first. The entire armies engage almost immediately. Talking about massive maps. Map design is important. My first Total War game was when I bought a cheap copy of Empire in 2015. Then I played Napoleon, bought Attila, didn't get into it, bought Medieval 2, bought Rome, then Shogun 2 and Fall of the Samurai. I've got every Total War now, barring Warhammer 2, Warhammer 3, Med 1 and Shogun 1. So you haven't got the actual Total War games. Ah, man. As soon as Rome 1 comes along, you've got Sega getting involved, and they're becoming purely for profit, and the studio's getting bought from its actual founder, and everything changes. As much as games like Rome, Med 2, Shogun 2, Fall of the Samurai had strong points, it was really Med 1 and Shogun 1 that were true Total War games, and they were laser focused, right on track the entire time. I'm firmly with you. Wait a minute. I don't even know how to play any game past Shogun 2. It's so alien and the combat feels so blobby and ridiculous that I just can't get involved. Absolutely. Absolutely, that's how it should be. Because after Shogun 2, you've got Rome 2 and everything beyond. New Total War. This guy is the same as me, and I would recommend he tries Medieval 1, or watches my videos on it to see exactly what he's missing out on, and how good Total War can be. I'm firmly with you. Napoleon, Fall of the Samurai, the peak of Total War for me, and everything about those games is damn near perfect. I know the single unit armies would make the AI buggy as fuck, see the Ottomans, but they bring a far greater variety to battles than 20v20 Doom stacks constantly. And yeah, Doom stacks is this 12-year-old word for strong stacks, with mods that tailor the game to preferences usually. There's limits to that, of course, but I find that typically smooths out the rougher edges with any of the Total War games. So he's talking about the games past Shogun 2 and how they have to be just modded to hell. I like the use of cover in pre-Warhammer games. Maybe it makes a difference in Warhammer 3K, but it felt a lot more obviously meaningful in Empire Napoleon. Terrain in Warhammers used to trick the eye into bunching up their forces and wiping them all out with one spell. Oh my god. And then this guy gives probably one of the most sensible comments here, I think, just from looking at how it's structured and how it starts. You're correct, I've started replaying Shogun 2, and I've been enjoying it more now than ever before. Warhammer really does lack the realism and strategy of the other games, especially the stupid tower defence and god-awful settlement maps in Warhammer 3. I love the Warhammer games. Warhammer 3 has become a most played computer game, but the older historical titles have something Warhammer doesn't. I'm thrilled that we're finally getting a historical title with Pharaoh. Oh my god, I take it back. Because I don't believe 3K or Troy were historical titles, as if that matters. And Thrones was just such a bad game, it doesn't count. So to me, the last historical title was Attila. Who cares? Who cares about this? Like, see, if you don't have... There's good games and there's bad games. If the games are not even good, what does it matter if they're historical or not? This is the thing. See, when people say historical, they don't mean good. Obviously not, because they would just say good. And if they're not talking about good or bad, why do they give a shit? You know, we're not getting good games. He's admitted it here. He started out admitting we're not getting good games. So why does he give a shit about any of this? This is not going to fix it. Fuck's sake, Rome 2 was a historical game. A pistorical game, and it was fucking garbage. And he's admitted that. So what the fuck? This is meaningless nonsense. Just think about what you're saying. I believe Medieval 3 is in the works, and I hope that it plays totally different than any other Total War. Old titles could be competitive because of the grand scale, main selling point of Empire, or the time period. Then Warhammer made it all about the battles and settings. What? No, it didn't. With the least robust settlement management of all Total Wars, which is perfectly fine for Warhammer. However, historical titles can never compete with the epic battles of Warhammer with magic and monsters and variety. Oh my god, this is all over the place. So I hope that the next historical titles have much more focus on realism and tactics to make up for it. Yeah, finally. He said it. If things such as terrain play a feature in battles and make a big difference, formation, strategy, etc., if those can actually be the focus of battles, that can save the historical genre. And of course, a more robust kingdom management is crucial. Sadly, Pharaoh doesn't seem to have any of these things, but it's on the same engine and reused assets of Troy, which see it does with all Total Wars, and it's totally fine. No, it isn't. It's obviously just a cheap fucking copy-paste with as little changed as is possible. But I hope the next one is Medieval 3 with a whole new engine. Absolutely not, they're not going to do that. People are going to buy the same shitty engine, so they're going to just stick on the same shitty engine and whole new approach to Total War games, just like Warhammer being a new approach to Total War games. Oh my god. What does this even mean? Pharaoh doesn't seem to have any of these things. Do you mean it doesn't, or do you mean that you don't know anything about Pharaoh to know, but you still want to say that it hasn't? Look, and then this guy's pretending that people haven't played Pharaoh and confirmed that it is stagnating here. Pharaoh was literally the same diplomacy tab as Rome 2, same battles, vibes and philosophy as Troy. We got 3 Kingdoms in 2019 who brought in many innovations, and then the games released after just went back to the old formula. But with Warhammer, like fast-paced battles where everyone is always running and immortal leaders. Exactly, this is it. Stamina doesn't matter and single entities just do everything. Pharaoh's issue is that the game looks already old as fuck and show to everyone how stagnating the whole franchise is. Exactly, well said. This guy's got it. I think he's left a few good comments now. Well said. Oh, I need to drink coffee, man. I'm getting hoarse. If you'd played it, and also if you'd played Troy, you would know better that terrain never played a great role in battles, and this is something that got expanded on in Pharaoh even. Same for formations, especially with the new push and retreat option. This is one of these comments that I think are going to age like absolute dog shit. No one who has played Pharaoh has had anything really good to say about this. This is all the most tentative, actually I would say fearful praise. Fearful, tentative, attempted praise. I think one of them even said that they didn't even have it working yet, so they had to just show a demo of it that they'd done themselves. So they were hoping that the YouTubers would praise how it works from a video they showed of it behind the scenes in secret. So it doesn't even work. Oh my god, look at this. Troy is the most influential battlefield areas of any Total War to date. You have long grass spots, which can hide most infantry units. Holy shit, literally fallen for the shitty marketing that was a complete embarrassing scandal because Rome Total War from 2004 had long grass. Holy shit, you absolute clown. You have honest cliffs and steep slopes. We had this in Medieval 2 in 2006, so that's 2004 for this and 2006 for this, and even Medieval 1 had impassable cliff areas. My god, this is embarrassing. You have various dense forest. Medieval 1, Shogun 1 had forest. There hasn't been a single Total War game that hasn't had forest, has there? Has there been a single one? Holy shit. Shallow, passable, but greatly slows down penalties for fighting in it. Holy shit, Barbarian Invasion 2005 and Deep River. Classic uncrossable. Holy shit, this is all 2005 Barbarian Invasion for Rome Total War. Holy shit. The standards are so low. 12 upvotes on this dog shit. Oh my god. 12 upvotes on this completely off the mark garbage. The only thing missing really is fire. Oh my god, yeah. And as I said, Far Cry 2 had that in 2006, 2007. My god. Which is confirmed to come back with Pharaoh. And Three Kingdoms, of course, did that, and I think Attila started it out. So Three Kingdoms had fire in 2019, and Attila, I think, even Rome 1, as I've said, allowed buildings to catch fire and burn down. And it was a primitive visual effect that didn't really affect gameplay that much at all, if at all, but it was still there. Even now it doesn't really affect gameplay whatsoever. Even in Three Kingdoms, all it did was spread and you could just ignore it. I don't remember really having fire do much, honestly. I think all it did was route units that had to already be in the fire. So you would have forests go on fire while units are in it, and then they would just route, and that would be all it did. It's not like you would have guys asphyxiating, becoming exhausted for the whole battle because their lungs fill up with smoke. You wouldn't have anything like that. It wasn't actually in depth or anything. It was not a good feature. It was not impressive. It has never been impressive or well done, and yet it's getting praised. This is such a bootlicker comment. The bootlicker words come out because this is bootlicker bullshit right here. Downvoting this for being a bootlicker comment. Brown nosing CA giving them praise for the most half-assed shit and for dishonest marketing, which advertises features that are 2 decades old. Embarrassing. They noted that Pharaoh will double down on that with changing the weather mid-battle. Oh my god, another massive fail comment. We had that in Shogun 1, the first ever Total War game had weather that changed mid-battle. Holy fuck. Absolutely embarrassing. Like a sudden sandstorm, reducing visibility greatly. Range is going to in it. Oh my god, it's not even coherent. Fatiguing and actually damaging all affected units. Fuck that. Damaging units, it's just weather. So how can you hear that and think that's good? Alright, so guys, every single unit on the battlefield is going to take tick damage for the rest of the battle. Does that sound good? No, what the fuck? It's fucking worthless. Rain which change the terrain, like creating swamps and shallow rivers. This is all just marketing jargon being propounded as if it isn't garbage. Fuck these comments. 12 upvotes on this dog shit. Fucking worthless. Someone that hasn't really played historical titles. I do also have mixed feelings on stuff like spellcasters, legendary lords, etc. On the one hand, they're really cool and badass and make the little Timmy inside me very happy. Holy shit, actually admitting to being infantilized by these games. Holy shit. Landing a big winds of death is really satisfying, of course, but on the other hand, it gets to the point where 90% of your army is just there to keep the opponent busy while the hero units do all the actual work. Fucking... there it is. So, in 2 sentences, he's owned up to everything wrong with these games. It's infantilizing. He says he feels satisfied by something that's brain dead here as well. And then he says here that your army is just there as a fucking meat shield while heroes do everything with their magic spells. It's not even a tactics game, it's brain dead. Quite often you'll have battles where 1 to 2 units get 90% of the kills and all the other units are effectively just there to be in the way. It's almost reminiscent of MOBAs, exactly. He's being honest. Hasn't really played historical titles and he's admitting how bad it is. Even he knows how bad it is. 3K has a fully historical mode. Absolute nonsense, and it's not fully because of course you have single entity elephants that I'm gonna get up. Alright, here's your fucking fully historical mode. Look at this, I've got, look, realism mode here, check the box, and then I've got 6 elephant people. 6 elephant people against a full army. Balance of power says I'm absolutely screwed. Look, there's my elephant people. No wait, let's get it. Fast forward. Alright, so there's what I go on with. I don't use any of these. I only use these 6 elephant men. That's it. I don't use any of those. And I'm against a full stack, and the balance of power is completely against me. And then I go in there, and I just have my 6 elephant men just run in and kill everything. So I've got 2 groups of elephant men. One group is here, the other is on the other side, and I just run through them. The charge is happening again, I think. Yeah, it goes. This is your fully historical mode, everyone. Fully historical. 6 elephant men that just run in and kill entire armies. Look at this. No losses to my elephant men. And like I said, these are all doing nothing. They're not involved. Elephant men just running through whole army, killing everything. Look at that. They're all just getting killed. 6 elephant men just running through it all. And the battle's over. Heroic victory. How many losses do you think I had, lads? How many losses did I suffer in this fight? 0 kills against me. Everything's still alive. No losses on anything. Still got all of my men. They've got nothing left. It's all dead and they kill nothing. Fully historical mode. Fucking dog shit. Who gives a fuck about this? Fucking meaningless garbage. 3K has a fully historical mode. And this was really good. And the records mode withered on the vine. As romance is obviously the intended way to play the game, exactly. In what way? It's the same as romance mode. It's the same as romance mode, except your generals get bodyguard units. Exactly. It's the same fucking shit. Fuck's sake. Oh my god. 3 Kingdoms is literally built around the interpersonal relationships from Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. The real game is in romance mode. All of that gets stripped out in records mode, and you're left with a half-baked game that doesn't really stand well on its own. Interpersonal relationships are still in records mode, and why shouldn't they be? Did people not have friendships or rivalries in history? Oh, fucking idiot. Which is the problem, because they should have changed more than just replace heroes with bodyguards. For example, the whole recruiting mechanism with the different unit types and colours just makes little sense in records mode because your generals are basically all the same. It also forced you to have a massive amount of generals in each army, which is good because they're heroes, but here they basically just force a lot of shitty cavalry on you and more. The item system also got no change. They only changed what the different attributes do. The only other change it got is that you deplete unit stamina faster. Basically, it's quite obvious that records mode was very much rushed and got basically no care or attention before or after release. And even if it technically works, it obviously is obvious that it was an afterthought, and that alone makes it feel worse. Exactly. Alright, well I think I've covered everything. Don't think there's much that can be like, oh man. The Warhammer battles all feel like a technical or mosh pit, which will be decided by making sure you've precisely the right units and abilities to counter the enemy's specific units and abilities. On the other hand, Napoleon, Fall of the Samurai Empire especially, all with DM, you have your slowly churning meat grinder with a serious tactical element. You have to think about how to use the terrain, how to interlock fields of fire, and a whole host of other considerations which do not always come into play for Warhammer battles. Exactly. I've been downvoted into the Netherrealm in the past for holding the view of not liking or preferring Warhammer combat compared to older games. Glad to see this perspective resurface and actually be talked about sensibly. Exactly. My god. Yep, so I'll link this thread in the description, and you can go here and read anything that I've missed and point out if you want. But I'm getting hoarse and my throat hurts because I've been doing a lot of talking today, so I'm going to leave it there. And as that guy said, nice to see people finally acknowledge this. 3 years ago or so, look at this, he's still going, 3 Kingdoms is garbage, fuck's sake, it's an embarrassing game. I've demonstrated it repeatedly. But yeah, it's funny how much things have changed in the past only 2, 3, 4 years. People are coming round. 96% upvoted on this compared to 87% 2 years ago to say the exact same thing. And this is remarkable. Battles feel more like a card trading game than an immersive engagement. And quick fire card game about using abilities in unit matchups. Perfect. I'll love to see this. Shithole subreddit shenanigans.